big ears and buttercups, sharp noses and the sharper sounds of spring birdsong, sun drying the dew on a lush green meadow, and the soft tread of the quick brown fox. Pure bliss. And there's plenty more to come on the festival of wildlife that is tonight's Springwatch.
Hello!
Yes, indeed. Hello, and welcome to Springwatch 2022, coming to you live from Wild Ken Hill. Now, we've had quite a good week. We've had a couple of global firsts and some great science. Tonight, we're going to change the flavour a little bit. We're going to have a festival of nests. We're going to show you the very best activity that we've got all of the nests here at Wild Ken Hill.
But first of all, let's have a look at the map, remind you of where we are. We're at Wild Ken Hill, which is on the coast of Norfolk, and down here in Snettisham. And you can see on the farm, we've got wetlands, rewilding areas, regenerative farming and woodland. And across all of those areas, we've got plenty of nests. Now, some of the birds are fledged. Some of them have actually been predated, but we've got lots left, so let's enjoy them while we're here.
Indeed. Let's take a look at what we've got now. Yes, there they all are. I tell you what, let's go to the swallows. Look, oh, the swallow was there, but it's just flown away. Let's have a look at those youngsters. Look at that. Blackcap's back, apparently. We could go to Blackcap. Come on. Oh, there we got the male Blackcap attending that nest of 3 youngsters. And look, already some feathers coming through on the backs of their heads where they were previous downly. What about our kites? We can go to the kites as well. Oh, look at that. What a scene. Lovely russet youngsters there having their supper. And we've got plenty more activity coming from those nests later this evening. But big news.
Big news for one of our nests, and it is this one, the shelduck. Now, this is a nest that we actually only briefly introduced you to a couple of days ago because we were thinking with the behaviour of the female that something might happen. Well, let's have a look and see if it did. Because everybody's eyes were on this nest, because the behaviour of the female had changed a bit. It was going in and out of that nest much more frequently. The male, however, was spotted out in the fields. Female hoping that it's going to go to the nest. Just a quick reminder of where that nest is. The nest is underground in the hole in the tree. So all eyes were on it, as I say, because we were really hoping that we'd see something. And if you look closely, you can see there is a little duckling. So we didn't want to miss them coming out, but it looked like they were going to. Then the squirrels ran past and she backs off, clearly a little bit anxious. Doesn't want to take those ducklings out while there's anything outside the nest. So early this morning, you can see the ducklings all queuing up, eager to come out. She still seems a bit anxious. And the reason is because the male's nowhere to be seen. And she wants the male to come out to help her protect those ducklings. Look at this, oh, I love this. Looks like they're queuing up for lunch. They're keen to get out of that nest and emerge. 4:34 this morning, she flies off, which is a bit surprising, but she's clearly gone to look for the male. The ducklings don't want to wait around, they're impatient. So all of them decide to leave the nest. There are 10 of them. One's left behind, there's always one straggler at the back, isn't there? Soon catches up. This is a bit of a bold move because you can see they're extremely vulnerable. To be out there on their own is not a wise thing to do. Look at them. Brand new little fluffy things. Fortunately, the male and female shelduck come back and they're going to escort them out to the marsh. The marsh is about 860 metres away. So this is quite treacherous. And that's why you've got one at the front, one at the back, watching out for predators, showing them the way. And so we watch those 10 little ducklings waddle off to the marsh along the road And once they went into the field, they actually went a slightly different way than we were expecting. So we lost them, but we presume that they ended up in the wetland area.
Long way to go, though, isn't it?
It
As you
is,
say,
yeah.
860 metres down to the edge of the marsh there. And who's living down on the marsh, Michaela?
I know.
Mr. and Mrs. Marsh Harrier,
it
and
is
we'll be taking a look
treacherous.
at that nest a bit later on. Mind you, take a look at this. This is remarkable. Jess McCaffrey from Lanarkshire sent us this. She's got a couple of wildlife cameras out on a badger set. They're about 10 metres apart, these two cameras. So she was watching a couple of badgers. After a little while, one of them left and didn't return to the set, left one badger there. Then she spotted that a fox had arrived and given birth to its litter of cubs in the same badger set. Not too unusual, that can happen if it's big enough and they're far enough apart. Mind you, the fox isn't too keen on sharing that space with the badger, and it chases it back down the hole and then even has another go when it's outside. And rather surprisingly, the badger backs off. This is even more surprising. The set's quite close to a river. An otter arrives, and once again, the vixen is sharply in and chasing the otter away. Now, this is surprising because typically in the hierarchy of mammals, foxes are definitely subordinate to badgers. Badgers are much better armed, stronger teeth, better claws. But here it's the vixen's desire to protect those cubs which is leading it to attack those other animals. Otter too, again, big, bulky animal, sharp teeth, very quick moving. So a very good bit of action from the female fox there looking after her cubs.
I think that's phenomenal. Thank you so much for sending that in because we really enjoyed watching that. Meg's up on the coast of Northumberland. I mean, how chuffed would you be to get that on your local woodland cameras that you'd put out? It's fantastic, wasn't it?
I couldn't tell you how excited I'd be. It's always that anticipation when you set out a camera trap and you have to wait to get the card back and look on your laptop a little bit later on. And if I saw that, well, to be honest, I'd be entirely over the moon. That's some great, great footage. But of course, lots of you have been sending in your photos and videos, and we appreciate that so, so much. And this was sent to us by Claire Hayes in Leicestershire. Now, she has a beautiful pond in her garden, and look what she found, a newt. Now, we think this is a smooth newt, but it's hard without seeing the underside. It could be a palmate, but my guess would be smooth. And she went about and she researched how to encourage these amphibians into her garden, and she found that water mint's a really good plant to put in. So she did that last year. She went out this spring to see what had happened, and she found something pretty spectacular wrapped up within the water mint's leaves. Look at this, a developing newt. So gorgeous. It's really rare that you get that kind of perspective. She took a couple photos and put it back into the water and sent it across to us. And we asked Frog Life, do you have any idea what species this is? And they confirmed our thoughts, which was a great crested newt, the rarest of the 3 native species we have in the UK, certainly the largest. They get up to 17 centimetres long. They're absolutely unbelievable. And Claire, I'm entirely envious of your great crested newt. That's amazing, and something we can all learn. Water mint apparently is really good, so something we can all do. Now, of course, I'm stood on these beautiful sand dunes, and there's beautiful purple flowers all around me, but there's someone who can do one up on that. Yolo Williams up in Mull, what have you got in store for us tonight?
Yeah, just look at this. Look at this. Isn't that beautiful, Megs? Quintessentially British scene here. Meadow full of bluebells. And did you know that we have around half the world's population of bluebells here in the UK? And people come from Europe just to see our stunning bluebell woodlands. And we have a long association with this plant dating back to Elizabethan times. In those days, the starch from the bulbs were used to stiffen those huge ruffs that they put around their necks. And the sap, well, the sap was used to glue the feathers to arrows of medieval archers. And there's lots of folklore associated with them too. It's said that when the bluebells ring, the fairies are summoned, but I haven't seen a single fairy here yet. And in Welsh, they're called Clychair Gold, the cuckoo's bells. Why? Well, because the first flower appears just about the same time as the first cuckoo makes its way back from Africa. It's a protected plant, and it's a valuable source of nectar for many invertebrates, and that includes a very rare butterfly called a checkered skipper. There's a lot of commotion on Mull last week when we had the first ever confirmed record of a checkered skipper. It was found by entomologist Chris or stick. Now, there have been other unconfirmed reports, but this was the first concrete one. A first for Mull on a hot day. I had to go and check it out. Now, off I went. It was warm, it was beautiful, it was perfect weather for butterflies. Sheltered glade, I thought I'm going to find it straight away. So I looked, I scanned, I looked at every single plant, every single flower, every square centimetre of path, and I found absolutely nothing. So Chris, thankfully, went back the next day, and he not only found the butterfly, but he also filmed it for us too. And here it is. Isn't it a little beauty? See now why it's called the checkered skipper. Look at those markings, like an orange checkerboard there. It's not very big, it's quite a small butterfly. And Chris reckons he found maybe 3, but he definitely found 2 territorial males there. And they're only on the wing for about a month, towards the end of May and early June. So he timed his visit perfectly. A first for Mull. How brilliant is that? And pardon the pun, but the checkered skipper has had a very checkered past. It was first found in Scotland in 1940, and for a long time the whole population was confined to about a 30-mile radius around Fort William in the far northwest. Why is that? Why are they so scarce? What do these butterflies need? Well, they need a combination of things. First of all, they need a sunny, sheltered glade in some woodland, where they're away from the strong winds and where they can catch the sun. They also need nectar in the forms of flowers like marsh thistles, bugle and bluebells. Bluebells are very important for them. They also need a grass called Molinia, or purple moor grass, for egg laying. And up here in the northwest, the climate is mild and humid, and that means that the Molinia remains green for much longer, right through into October, so the caterpillars can feed for much longer before they eventually pupate and then go on to become adults. Now, just over 10 years ago, the butterfly experts got together and said, okay, well, we know what this butterfly needs. Surely there's a lot more suitable habitat for it up here. So between 2012 and 2014, they carried out a survey and they found butterflies at 104 new sites, and that extended the species' range by an incredible 42%. But it used to be a lot more widespread. It used to be found in England. It became extinct in 1976 because of a loss of habitat. But recently, thankfully, they've been reintroduced. And Springwatch cameras were there in 2018 to see some of the butterflies being released. It's at Rockingham Forest in Nottinghamshire, and these butterflies were sourced actually from Belgium, because the Belgian butterflies, like the old English ones, they feed on a plant called false broom. That's the caterpillar's food plant. And I'm very pleased to say that the people who are monitoring it are saying that the butterflies are doing really well. They've seen a whole life cycle from egg to caterpillar to pupa to adult. Great news. And Chris and Meg's down there at Wild Ken Hill, do you know what? Isn't it lovely to be able to report on a success story in conservation?
It certainly is, Yolo. You're absolutely right. It's worth celebrating those successes, and we certainly can do effective conservation. We just need to do a lot more of it, a lot more quickly, and a lot more broadly. Now, if you were watching earlier in the week, you'll know that we showed you something very special indeed when it came to badgers. Wildlife Kate McRae, had built an underground set, put in cameras, and we'd witnessed the birth of these animals for possibly the very first time. We'd also been watching the adult replenishing the bedding in the nest, cleaning, nurturing her young, and we left them last night. The nation was cooing and oohing about the young badgers as they curled up to suckle Peggy, the female there. Well, we're going to take another look at the badgers now. They've grown a little bit. So here they are. This is when they were first born. They were this size, and then they've gone up in size. And here we've now got the badgers, and they're 5 weeks old. 5 weeks old. They weigh about 800 grams. And that's about the weight of 4 hamsters. They've got their teeth, their eyes are open, and as you can see now, they've very clearly got their black and white and grey pelage there.
We were weighing them in oranges, so how many oranges is that?
I've no idea. I know how much a
5, I
hamster
think.
weighs. It's 200 grams. I've never weighed an orange.
Let's catch up with our badgers though at 5 weeks old, because Kate McRae carried on filming them, and this is what she saw. You can see one there. You can see, as Chris said, it's like a little mini adult, still making a lot of noise. At 5 weeks old, its eyes have started to open, although its eyesight still isn't very good for a couple more weeks. Won't come out of the set underground until it's about 8 weeks old. But listen, this is remarkable. This is Peggy fighting off an intruder. It's ferocious, it's aggressive, there's a lot of noise going on. She is stopping that intruder getting into that set. As we've said before, there is sometimes infanticide, predation of those cubs. She is not going to let that intruder come anywhere near them. It all goes calm for a bit. Peggy's gone into one of the holes to protect her cubs. He goes to the other hole, has a sniff around, and then there's slightly extraordinary behaviour. It's almost as if he's frustrated. She comes out, has another go at him, and then the intruder starts to basically destroy the entrance to the set, sniffs around a bit, she's still at the entrance, and you can hear a little bit of noise. Really is extraordinary to get this on camera. And eventually, he gives up, leaves them alone, and the intruder wanders off.
And let's be clear, that's a proper badger fight. We've seen badgers play fighting many times on Springwatch, and occasionally it gets a little bit rougher, but that's a full-on badger fight. Peggy had a night off, but then the following night, what we think was the same badger came back for a second time. Now, we're not able to see which sex the badger is. It could be a small male or it could be a female, but it's definitely intent on trying to get down into Peggy's set where her young are. But she's showing real fortitude here, and she manages for the second time to drive that animal away. You wouldn't want to be involved in that fight. Badgers are really well armed. And then we see this little bit of displacement behaviour. The other badger is frustrated, it's not able to fight, it doesn't know what to do with its energy, and so it starts tugging at that branch outside the set entrance. But as I say, that's really quite something, and brilliant to see Peggy doing such an amazing job of protecting her cubs down in that set.
It looks ferocious, and they've certainly got the equipment to do quite a lot of damage to each other. If we look at this skull, I mean, they've got sharp teeth, and they've got quite a bite. Relative to their size, that jaw bite is incredibly powerful. It's more powerful than a cougar, which I know is a bit of a random comparison.
What about hamsters?
Twice.
What about 4 hamsters?
Twice as powerful as a domestic cat, not quite as powerful as a lion. But as I say, that is a powerful bite. And you might be wondering why they need to have such a powerful bite, because, let's face it, most of the time they just eat worms. Well, it's probably a throwback to earlier times when they would have had to fight off things like bears and wolves, I guess.
And lynx, all the predators that were here, yeah, who would have been trying to dig them out of their sets to eat them themselves. But going back to what was going on with that fighting, Michaela mentioned infanticide and predation. What's it likely to be? Well, it could have been predation. It could have been a male or a female badger that had smelled those youngsters and simply wanted a meal, because they would eat other small mammals. Other badgers like that. But it could have also been infanticide. It could have been a male that was interested in mating with Peggy. Now, Kate has seen Peggy mating since she's given birth to those cubs. That's not unusual. They'll mate from February through to May, typically, and they have delayed implantation. So although they mate then and the embryos are fertilised, they don't implant into the uterus until much later in the year. But copulation stimulates ovulation. So it could have been a new male trying to get into that social group, or maybe one of the subordinate males thinking it wanted to breed for the first time. That would be fair enough. It could easily mate with Peggy. Why would it want to kill her young? Well, they're probably not related to it. And as a consequence, the last thing it wants is its or any other genes in that social group that aren't its genes surviving, taking up her time and energy. So we do see infanticide like that from male badgers in those social groups, as we see it in many other animals, most notably, of course, lions that go into a pride, the males, and will rapidly kill all of the cubs before they mate with the females.
I know, it's really hard to watch though, isn't it? You know, coming from empathy, you can't imagine doing that yourself, but as Chris said, some mammals do it. It's extraordinary behaviour, it really is. Do you know what else is extraordinary? Bit of a random link here, but seals in the Thames. Seals in the Thames.
Random.
The Zoological Society of London have been asking people to send in sightings since 2004 of seals that they've seen in the Thames. And look, it's quite amazing. They've gone right up the Thames, Chris, all the way to Richmond. But, you know, where have they come from? Where have these aquatic wanderers come from? Well, we were interested to know as well, so we sent Chantel Lindsay off to see if she could find out.
Living in London, I've often heard reports of seals being spotted in the River Thames. But I've never seen one for myself. But rather than wait at Tower Bridge for one to swim past, I've travelled to Ramsgate in Kent to get my first look at these inquisitive animals. There are two species of seal in the UK, greys and harbours, also known as common seals. Both can be found in the tidal areas of the Thames and surrounding waters. Over the last 20 years, scientists have seen their numbers steadily increasing. So today, I'm meeting with Thea Cox of the Zoological Society of London to find out more. How did the ZSL get involved with tracking the seal population?
So we started working on seals about 10 years ago. We've tried to, together with local organisations, we developed an annual survey and have been monitoring them ever since. We survey for the population in the first 2 weeks of August when the seals are molting, and we try and do that around low tide in a light aircraft, and we look at the coastline and the sandbanks and use photography to look at number and the different species.
And what have you discovered?
We've seen an increase in seal numbers, but then more recently we've seen a plateauing, and that's kind of where the importance of monitoring the population comes from, to know if that's a natural fluctuation or if we are genuinely seeing a plateau or a drop-off in numbers, and kind of understand the long-term picture.
Because the seals have been doing well here recently, it's really important to keep a track of any changes that may be having an impact on populations. Hello. Good morning. So we're heading out to get a closer look. I've never seen a seal in the wild before, but hopefully today that's going to change. Spring is a good time to find them. At this time of year, harbour seals will be gearing up for pupping, which happens around the end of June, beginning of July. Larger grey seals breed elsewhere, but come to this area to hunt prey like sand eels, whelks and crabs in the shallow coastal waters. Oh my gosh, I can see a seal!
And then up there on the bank you've got a small group of harbour seals.
They're just beautiful. I can't believe I'm just seeing seals. It's incredible. Some of the seals that live here take on an orangey-brown colour. It's due to iron oxide, rust to you and me. A stark reminder of the area's industrial past. But as the industry has disappeared, the water quality has started to improve. And And how many seals have we got up and down the estuary?
So when we do our survey, we survey from Gravesend out, and we do the Kent and Essex coastline and all the sandbanks in between. And on our last count, we recorded approximately 500 harbour seals and 750 grey seals. And you can take those counts and scale them up to give you an idea of the population you might see. And based on that, there could be as many as 3,000 grey seals in the Thames estuary and about 750 harbour seals.
It's incredible. These numbers recorded around and along the mouth of the Thames estuary are really encouraging, especially if you consider that in the 1950s, the Thames was declared biologically dead.
Because seals are higher up the food chain, they can give us an indication about general ecological health. So if they're doing well, we can assume that there are the habitats and the food there to support them. It's pretty remarkable, kind of the bounce back that we've seen for the Thames.
Absolutely, they must be very resilient. The recovery of these seals is a good news story for the Thames, but it doesn't mean all the work is done. There are still challenges to face in the future, with pollution, climate change and increasing water temperatures all posing threats to their long-term survival. It's so encouraging to know that the seals here are sustaining a breeding population. It just brings home how vital it is to protect these really important habitats. And if the River Thames continues to clean up its act, hopefully I'll get to lay eyes on one of these a little closer to home in the not-too-distant future.
Even the areas most devoid of life can come back given the chance, and that is an amazing story about those seals on the Thames. And what I really enjoyed about that was Chantal's reaction to seeing a seal in the wild for the first time. I'm sure it's something we can all relate to when we see a new species. Sometimes it's a surprise, sometimes we go out looking for it, but it never gets old, that feeling of discovery and connecting with nature. A wonderful, wonderful story. Now, I'm at the beach and I've come a little bit far out from Hawksey, just round the corner actually, to this wonderful location, beautiful sunshine, and just a mile off the coast this way is Coquet Island, a beautiful island that's a seabird sanctuary for so many, 82,000 individuals to be precisely. And at the moment it's peak breeding time, and earlier on I got the opportunity to go out and have a little look just on a boat off the edge of it with Paul Morrison as well as Ibrahim Al-Fawi, who are rangers on the island and allowed me to get a sneak peek.
Paul and Ibrahim are among the lucky few who have permission to step foot on the island.
Paul, how long have you been coming here for?
This is my 38th season on Coquet Island. That's 38 years.
Wow.
But as you can see, every time I come near the island, I have a big smile. I'm addicted to the place.
So we've got to drop you off tonight then?
I'm afraid so, but it's your lucky day because you'll be able to get in fairly close. We maintain the habitat, that's vital. We deter landings because keeping the birds to the peace and quiet, offering them no disturbance is crucial.
It's a sad state of affairs though, isn't it, that you're still having to provide that kind of protection even now in 2022?
We always have staff at night time looking after the birds at night time, just to guard them. We don't want people coming in trying to steal the eggs, which has happened once before, many years ago. So we never ever leave the island unattended.
But a constant watch on the island gives a unique insight for researchers like Ibrahim.
Well, we are observing the island day and night, so you can really spot any change quickly. And we are really part of the cycle of the birds here, so we straight away notice if they are really increasing or decreasing. There's one area, there's a fulmar, kittiwake, black-headed gull, common tern, buffin, and roserbell. We have a record here now for common tern with 1,875 nests.
That's incredible.
And a record year for Arctic tern as well. We've got 1,340 nests. So it's something really amazing happening here now.
So it's a really big year.
Yeah.
That's incredible. For such a small area of land to have so many birds living, and also not just number of birds, but a diversity of species.
Yes. Well, basically, we are lucky having this location, you know, facing the estuary of the Coquette River, bringing a lot of nutrients here, and then that's feeding all the creature in the sea, creating a lot of fish for the birds.
Coquette is a really successful reserve, in particular for the UK's rarest breeding seabird, the roseate tern. It's a record year for the roseates too, with an expected 15% increase on last year's numbers.
Quite a few roses.
Brilliant.
Depending on when they flash their white bellies, you get this kind of dazzling white, and then they look quite dark in other lights, and it's so... Oh, they're really really elegant, really. Oh, look! Oh,
Hello.
that's so cool. That experience still makes me smile, even just watching it back. It was so incredible to have all those birds over my head. And it is one of the most strictly protected reserves anywhere in the UK, protected by the RSPB. And on that boat ride out there, I was listening to the stories of Paul and Ibrahim, and it's such a way of life. They have so much dedication protecting these birds 24/7. And there were lots of stories that made me giggle, but in particular was I was able to take a photo of Ibrahim's hat. Now, when he goes out, he's obviously monitoring the birds during the day, and well, this is what he has to wear. It wasn't white before he started working there, but it certainly is white now. Of course, if you're surrounded by seabirds, you're going to get covered in what they produce, and I can only hope that one day I have a hat like that for myself. You know, we can all dream, can't we? Now, we're sticking along with our marine theme, except we're going up to the Isle of Mull now, where Yolo is, to talk about some fascinating marine mammals.
Thank you very much, Megs. And boys, back has been a busy week up here on Mull. Not just the checkered skipper, a first for Mull, of course, but word reached us last Thursday that a humpback whale had been seen off the north coast. Now, luckily for us, the whale whisperer himself, Andy Tate, was on that boat, and he sent us this photo of the whale. And you can see now why it's called a humpback whale. You see that hump on its back? Beautiful whale, and we're lucky because it's quite a showy whale as well. When it goes into a deep dive, it'll arch its back and the tail fluke comes right up, and it's got a huge tail, up to 5 meters across. It's a very impressive species. And this area, not just Mull, but the Hebridean Sea, is a fantastic place for cetaceans, and that's because of a mix of marine habitats. You've got shallow bays, you've got sheltered sea lochs, you've got fast-moving currents and upwellings with plenty of food, you've got deep channels for the bigger whales, so much so that they've recorded 23 species here. Now that is over a quarter of all the known species on Earth, and if you think that is impressive, come over here with me and have a look at this. This, right, is the cetaceans seen on Mull just in the last week, since June the 1st. And I can actually add to that, because just yesterday here off the south of Mull, 2 minke whales were spotted swimming together. And these aerial shots of the 2 whales here show you the whales, not just the whales, but if you look carefully, you can see their white pectoral fins, known as minke mittens, and they use those to corral fish together so they can lunge feed. And minke whales, well, they're seen around Mull here between, I would say, between April and October. But those are not the only cetaceans to be seen yesterday. Bottlenose dolphins were also seen just off the island of Iona off the southwest of Mull. Here's an individual here just playing in the wake of that boat. They're at the most northern part of their range here, and they're quite impressive dolphins. Can grow to be about maybe 3.5 meters long. And common dolphins too. See plenty of common dolphins here. Going out in a boat, I've seen pods numbering 50, 60, 70 individuals. They are supreme swimmers with those markings down the side, and they'll come and investigate the boat, they'll ride the bow wave, and then when they've had enough of you, they'll just leave, and they disappear in seconds. They are, as I say, supreme swimmers, they really are. And it's not just cetaceans either. There's other megafauna off the coast of Mull, and that includes the impressive basking shark. And just yesterday, 2 were seen off Coll. Now this is what you usually see, just a large dorsal fin there and a tail. but if you're ever lucky enough to get underwater with them, it's an impressive beast. It is the second largest shark in the world, grows to about 10 meters in length, and they feed on plankton, believe it or not. They follow the plankton blooms up north to the waters off here. And at the moment, the Shark Trust has got a very interesting citizen science project going on. It runs till October. They're asking people to send in sightings of basking sharks. Now, they could turn up anywhere, but there are hotspots. Let me show you these. The real hotspots are around Devon and Cornwall here, all around Ireland actually, Northern Ireland of course, the Isle of Man, quite a few seen off the Isle of Man, and in particular up here, off the west coast of Scotland, anywhere here. But as I said, keep your eyes open because they really could turn up anywhere. And if you want to get involved, if you want to send in records, then visit our website and all the information you need is on there. Right, let's leave the sea and come on to land. Leave the sharks and go on to snakes. And in the UK, of course, we have 3 species. We have the adder, the smooth snake, and the grass snake. But if you go for a wander up to Colwyn Bay in North Wales, there's a 4th species as well. And this is being looked at in great detail by students Tom Major and Lauren Jeffrey from Bangor University.
It's some good weather, so shall we turn these on and we'll go and see if we can find this male?
Let's do it.
Yep, okay. I'm on, are you?
Yep.
Yep, let's go have a look.
I really like Aesculapian snakes. I personally find them to be completely fascinating. They're non-venomous, but they're quite big compared to our native species. Their big males can grow close to 1.5 meters long, with females sort of topping out more like 1 meter. So they're certainly bigger than grass snakes, and they're far larger than adders or smooth snake. These snakes are normally found in Central and Southern Europe. They were introduced here by accident in the 1970s by the Welsh Mountain Zoo, who had some captive animals that escaped, and they're making a go of it. They're surviving, they're breeding successfully, and people are certainly surprised when they find out that there's a non-native species of snake that climbs trees and bushes living alongside them in North Wales. There really is so much we actually don't understand about them.
I'm getting in picking up towards the house.
Let's go and have a look. One of the things we're doing is we try and get a detailed understanding of the lives of individual snakes by implanting radio transmitters inside the snakes. That emits a radio frequency. It just sounds like a beep. That allows us to follow them around every day, see what habitats they use, and build up a far greater understanding of how they behave and what they do living in the UK.
Definitely getting a stronger signal this way. Even with this amazing equipment that can pinpoint them to within 1 meter, it's so hard to find them. You could literally be on top of the snake and not know sometimes.
We're just going to find Lauren because she's tracking a big adult male Aesculapian right now. The males are moving a lot because it's their breeding season, so the males are generally kind of frantically searching around looking for mates. And this time of year we see them move really long distances, 500–600 meters, even in just a few hours. How's it looking, Lauren?
So he definitely looks like he's in this left hedgerow. He is currently moving, so it's hard to pinpoint where exactly he is.
They're so cryptic. They always move in deep, dense vegetation. They really don't like to be seen on the surface. They've got aerial predators that will come down. Buzzers will swoop down and take them as they can.
He's on the other side.
Despite the fact that we don't always get to see the snake, we do still gather valuable data on what they're doing. We note down where it is, we take a GPS point, and then we can use that to build up an impression of their home range size and also their habitat use. So walking around and trying to actually just find snakes by looking is really difficult. So one of the ways we actually improve our odds is we put down squares of roofing felt onto the floor, and because they're black, they heat up in the sun, and when the snakes find themselves underneath, they get nice and warm, so they seek them out. And that really improves our chances. Anything under that one, Lauren?
No, nothing under this one.
It particularly works well for juveniles. Have you got one, Lauren?
I found a snake. Here
Incredible,
we go.
yeah. Okay, so what's really cool is if we catch them at this age, we have a chance to mark them, and that way we can actually, if we catch them again in subsequent years or even after a few months, we have an opportunity to understand how quickly they grow and whether there's kind of variations in that growth. So we'll have a look along the body, and if it is marked, you'll see a really bright orange blob. There we go. So that mark tells us that this is a snake that we've captured before, which means we'll have a history for it. And that's really exciting because that will give us an opportunity to see whether or not it's grown. And interestingly, what we see is that there is massive variation in growth. Snakes which are the same age, some of them may scarcely be bigger than this, which is barely bigger than a hatchling, while others will be close to adult size. It really seems to depend on how much food they manage to find. There are approximately 70 adult Aesculapian snakes in this area. We found that out by doing our mark recapture study. And on any given year, there might be up to 120 juveniles kicking around. From what we've seen, the population probably isn't expanding very much by virtue of the fact that the area they inhabit isn't actually expanding. But they are breeding successfully every year, and the population, as it is, seems to be quite stable.
I love that. Tracking snakes.
A cool snake
Oh, I
as
so
well,
wish I'd been
hey?
able to do that at university. I'm rather envious, Tom and Lauren, I really am. But top work, top work. But listen, we're keen to press on with our Festival of Nests.
Yeah, particularly our raptors. Let's have a bit of a raptor fest, shall we? Because we've got lots of raptors here, and we've got live cameras on quite a few of them. So let's first of all go to our kestrel nest. I love this nest. It's so just aesthetically pleasing. And look at that, little kestrel chick popping its eye out. If we can pull back, you can see where this nest is. It's in this tree stump, and there are 3 chicks in there, 27 days old. Been doing a lot of this, peeking out. Let's see what they've been up to the last couple of days, because I haven't actually caught up with them since last week. Look at that. How gorgeous do they look? And as I say, they've really been coming out more and more, exploring, because you wouldn't want to be in there, would you? That's inside.
Nice.
That is a fetid nightmare of mammals. Bit worried about this one, Chris, because look, it's got a bit of a squinty eye. We've nicknamed it Squinty. Going to keep our eye out on that one. Noisy jackdaw is a neighbour, bothering the kestrels a little bit, and as it swoops down, you can see them run back into that nest. Out they pop again. Still being fed by the parents. And that's Mum coming in with a pygmy shrew, which, oh no, I don't think I like that very much. They've begun to feed themselves, which is great. They're really developing well, these chicks. But sometimes your eyes are too big for your belly, you take too much in, and then you just gotta cough a bit out. Whoa, go on, there we go. And then you can stuff a bit more in. It's great, they're obviously being fed plenty, looking at that nest of remains. They're using this tree stump almost to do circuits on, and then they're doing a lot of preening, a lot of wing flapping. Basically, they're ready to go. As I say, they're 27 days old. They fledge at about 32 days. And so I reckon we'll see them fledge probably at the beginning of next week. But it's been a really, really lovely nest to watch that.
Very, very beautiful. I'm a bit upset about that youngster dropping that pygmy shrew, though.
Why?
Well, the adult was out hovering for about 20 minutes.
I know, yeah.
20
what a
minutes of
waste.
solid hovering to get that meal, and it just discards.
You cook your kids a meal, you try and give it to them, and they just...
Can we top that kestrel's nest? We might be able to. Let's go live to our marsh harrier's nest now. And this one really has been delivering some beautiful pictures. Look at that close-up of one of the 3 chicks that we've got in that nest at the moment. That is extraordinary. What a view of a fantastic bird that is. And there they are this evening, spread out, their bellies full, digesting all of the food that they've been brought today. And it's been a busy nest, and we've been very fortunate to be watching it for a week now. Oh, look at that! Look at the piercing stare of the female. Oh, that's sensational. It really is. As I said, an enormous range of food's been brought in. And what we see with these birds is that they will feed on pretty much anything that's living in their territory when it comes to small mammals and birds. The only birds they don't seem to take at some point are those which are living in any woodland in that territory. The young have been progressing quite quickly. You can see their adult feathers coming through now. And the adult is always attentive at the nest, particularly when it's been raining. And here they've still got that down. If they get drenched, they will, you know, get cold. So she's been doing a great job of standing over them and keeping them dry. Look at that little chick peeping out, and the drip on the tip of her beak tells the story. This one's doing plenty of exercise. Maybe a little bit too much exercise for some of them. This one's, yeah, a bit too ambitious. I can't do that either, mate. Not worth trying. And then today, it's been really, really warm here. And in this little sun trap down in the reeds, it was clearly too hot for them. So they were making their way into the shade of the reeds that surround the side of the nest. You can see them there, gular fluttering, gaping to lose some of the heat, as that down must be keeping them perhaps a little bit too warm at the moment.
Oh, it's just an amazing nest, isn't it?
Incredible.
Just an amazing
What a nest. Face of that female. Oh.
But they may have been sheltering from the heat today, but they were certainly sheltering from the rain over the weekend. If you remember, on Sunday, we had a downpour here in Norfolk, particularly at Wild Gen, 30 millimetres of rain. So how did that affect the feeding of the chicks of our different raptors and owls? Well, we did a count, in fact, and I can tell you, buzzard got 1 feed, kite and kestrel 3, barn owl 6, marsh harrier 12. And if I show you this chart, now this blue line shows the peak of the rain, and we've got different colours to show the different birds. So that's buzzard in pink, red is marsh harrier, yellow kestrel, green kite, blue barn owl. And you can see most of them, the feeds really go down at the peak of the rain, except for the marsh harrier. You can see that that stays pretty constant throughout, particularly compared to some of them. Look at that.
And these really bounce back after the rain. It's almost as if they're making up for the, you know, the slow day they had when it was really raining.
Yeah, so we were thinking, why would that be? Well, let's have a look, first of all, at the different ways that they hunt, particularly with 4 of those birds that I mentioned. First of all, you've got the red kite. You see them soaring, riding the thermals, looking for prey. In the rain, not so easy. Same thing for the buzzard. What about our kestrel, hovering specialist? Very challenging in bad weather, although they do also perch. Barn owl, famously bad in wet weather. They've got soft feathers, not very waterproof, and they rely on hearing. So again, not very easy when there's the noise of the rain, and certainly very difficult if it's windy. So that's 4 of those birds.
Now that kind of explains why those 4 species might be struggling to get food when it's really raining hard. But what about the marsh harrier? Because it didn't seem to struggle at all. Let's take a look at what they've been eating. And we've been monitoring the birds that we are watching here. Now, rodents are green. Other mammals are purple, birds are blue. So firstly, let's go to the buzzard and the red kite. They're going to be taking quite a lot of carrion. We know that, certainly the kites. So perhaps we can take them out of the equation just so they didn't like flying around in the rain, didn't like soaring, as Michaela said. Barn owl, on the other hand, plenty of rodents here. But when we go to the kestrel and the marsh harrier, we see a very different picture. Again, plenty of rodents for the kestrel, but look at the marsh harrier. Mostly birds, only a very small amount of rodents and other mammals here. So, what is it about the marsh harriers and birds? What we know is at the beginning of their breeding season, they're feeding principally on adult small birds. As I mentioned, virtually anything they can find in their territory. And they'll feed on quite a lot of small mammals. But when it gets to May through to August, they switch their diet quite quickly to feed on young water birds. And of course, those are very abundant down in the marshes. We've seen already tonight that clutch brood of shell ducks, 10 in number, somewhere down on the marsh there at the moment. And they'll continue to feed on those birds until mid-August, when they're about half grown and they become just a bit too big for the marsh harriers to carry off. So I postulate that the reason why they're able to continue to feed well on those birds is because they're feeding on water birds, which are possibly better adapted to life in the rain as youngsters, as they're living in an open, wet habitat, than some of the other species that the other raptors are struggling with. I think we've got live marsh harrier now. Have we got a live marsh harrier? I think we can just squeeze one in. Oh, it's just gone.
It's just gone. Don't you hate
gone.
that?
Sorry
You can't
about
rely on
that.
these marsh
Sorry
harriers,
about
can
that.
you?
But anyway, there we are. That might be why they're able to do well throughout the course of the weather.
Megs, up in Northumberland on the coast there, I want to ask you a question. Does the weather affect the way that you eat? Does it affect your eating patterns?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I think it kind of does. When it's winter and it's cold and you need that good comfort food, I always go to my grandma's house because she makes the best roast potatoes in all the world. And I love visiting. I've done it every other weekend since I was a kid. Now, earlier on in the programme, I introduced you to the wonderful, glorious Coquet Island. And I want to go over some of the records now because it really has been a fantastic year. And I want to get the numbers right. So at the moment, there are currently 1,875 common tern nests, 1,340 Arctic tern nests, 466 kittiwake nests, and 30,000 puffins. And that really is the tip of the iceberg of biodiversity on the island at the moment. It truly is an incredible place. But there's one species I haven't mentioned. It's the only breeding colony anywhere in the UK. It's of course the roseate tern, a beautiful tern, incredibly elegant, and they have been in massive decline. In the 70s, there were only 16 pairs, and now there's up to 150. That was last year, and now it's set to increase by 15%, which is pretty fantastic. So why are they declining? Well, it's a number of different reasons. So they were hunted, unfortunately, for their feathers. There was also, of course, climate change and lack of food availability, but also they got predated by gulls. And one technique that seemed to boost their numbers was actually putting down artificial nest boxes. And that's a technique that has been used by Coquet Island, and it's been working absolutely wonderfully. Here you can see them, but listen to the sound of this. Now, they do usually nest in scrapes or in dense vegetation, but it's working absolutely wonderfully. Listen to that. You can see how busy it is. All the birds flying overhead. It's utterly so cool, and you can't really see it from here, but if you were over there right now, it would be absolutely buzzing with bird life. And at the moment, of course, it's nesting season, which means that there are lots of eggs around as well. And we use technology to get inside those nest boxes and understand more about them. So here we have a male on the left, just by the entrance, and the female there. Now, they arrive at different times. They start arriving in May, and even now they're still arriving. But this pair were early, and look, the moment she lays an egg, her first egg, and look how attentive that male is, checking it out. What have you produced? Rather lovely, so intimate. She positions herself quite nicely here for the camera as she lays her second. It's amazing how curious that male is. It really is. Look at that. Having a look, and those vocalizations between the two as well, and she immediately starts to incubate them, making sure that they're nice and warm. They lay between 1 and 2 eggs. And off they go, making sure that those eggs stay nice and warm, making sure that they hatch into chicks going forward. And this is footage that we got from last year. They're still hatching at the moment, but you can see how quickly they grow. Look at there, this one has just come out of the egg. It's still quite wet, very delicate. Straight on to keep it warm. Now this chick is about 3 to 4 days old, having a snack from a parent that's been brought in for it, with fish, and grown so quickly just in a couple of days. And here, getting too big to be under the parents, and they're called out. How cute is that? And what's happening is the second adult has come in and is like giving them a call to say the food's around, come out, come and have a look, and they dart back out, and then they'll dart back in again. But what amazes me is how they can differentiate their parents' call in amongst that cacophony of sound. It really is incredible and shows how much left we have to learn. But how good are you with your tern ID? Because it can be really rather tricky. So we thought we'd give you a little bit of an identification guide. And I want to start off with the sandwich tern. Now, I always remember sandwich terns because they've got the black bill here, but they also have the yellow tip. And it's like they've kind of dipped their bill into butter or mustard or whatever your favourite yellow condiment is. So sandwich tern here. Then we can go to our common tern down here. And what you'll see is the red bill with the black tip. And they've got these tail streamers coming out the side, and these run in parallel to the tail. It's quite even, quite elongated, quite lovely. And here we have the Arctic tern. Often Arctic tern and common tern can get confused, but they don't have the black tip on the bill. Obviously, it's helpful if you can see the bill when you're identifying between the two. And then here, of course, the roseate tern. Black bill, you've got a bit of a red base, but it has these really long tail streamers. Very obvious if a roseate tern is in flight because you can see those streamers from above. So here it's a bit of a help for you, but of course I haven't forgotten, there is a fifth tern. Let me get it up. Here we have the little tern. Now the little tern isn't successfully breeding or visiting Coquet yet, but hopefully very soon that will happen. They're trying to encourage, and you can identify little tern because of the yellow bill, and they've got very different markings on the head as well. You can see it's almost got eyeliner, and it's much smaller than the rest of the tern species as well. I mean, pretty remarkable, isn't it? All these fantastic terns, so elegant, so beautiful. Now let's head over to Norfolk where Chris and Michaela are. I mean, look at this. It's a tern bonanza, to use your phrase.
A tern bonanza, a tern bonanza. I never thought I would be outbirded by the beast, but roseate tern. Been beaten today. Been beaten today, Megs.
We've been having a nest bonanza. We're trying to catch up with as many nests as possible. So let's catch up with our barn owls, because they have been very entertaining recently, these barn owls. There's 5 chicks in there. The eldest is 4 weeks old, the youngest is 5 days younger. And actually, this is one of the few times that you can actually see all 5. Very often they're bunched together in that nest box. This is what they've been up to recently. They've been very well fed by the adults. And you can see both adults, actually, we've seen rings on. One of them was ringed as a nestling last year, so it's a first-time mum. And the male is probably about 3 years old. I love this. Look where it peeked out there. You can really see that heart-shaped face. And they've all started to get a lot more confident. They're all eating well, they're all developing well. And I'm pleased to tell you that the one that was a real runt, the little one at the back, is actually doing okay. They're clearly getting enough to feed, because if they weren't, then that little runt by now would not have survived. So good to see.
But whilst we were talking earlier about all of their food, there might have been something that we omitted to tell you, and that is the barn owls and the kestrels have been caching lots of food. And the reason they do that, when it rains, they've still got access to food.
They can stay dry.
Well, that brings us to the end of our Nestival that we've had today. Hope you've enjoyed that. We'll be back again tomorrow, of course. And tomorrow we've got a super film about insects. It's all about the delicate little lacewings. Beautiful.
And I'm going to be on the trail of Mull's beautiful adders.
And I'll be trying to understand the coloration of the puffin bill.
So keep your eyes on our cameras online from midday to 9:30, because anything could happen, and we'll certainly catch up with that tomorrow. Send in all your stuff to our normal social media channels, and that's where to go tomorrow at 1 o'clock for Hannah Stipful, who'll be chatting to me on Watch Out. It's been brilliant. The rain has held off, the blue skies have stayed. Fingers crossed we'll get more of that tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Oh
Thunder.
My goodness, thunder.
Thunder.
Quick, run for cover. See you tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Bye.
To find out more about uncovering urban wildlife and about how regenerative farming affects our countryside, go to bbc.co.uk/Springwatch and follow the links to the Open University.